Good evening, everyone. Shout out to everyone who's in the chat already. It's the 61st edition of the Boxing Gossip podcast. Absolutely delighted that tonight we've got an absolutely full panel already assembled. We've, of course, got Jet, we've got Jay, we've got Paul, and we've got the inimitable Irish Tom. Lots to discuss, as ever, in the sport of boxing. We're going to start by looking back at last week's action. Most notably, the card in the US, which featured Adrian Broner versus Mikey Garcia, as well as Jarrell Miller versus Gerald Washington. Carl Frampton was also due to fight this weekend as well. So I'm going to start by bringing in Irish Tom. Frampton, Miller, and Garcia are three fighters who Tom has been hyping, or not necessarily hyping, but been very in the corner of for the past. So, Tom, a particularly significant week of boxing from your perspective, I assume.
Well, it was a good card from America. We finally got to see, people I think finally got to see Mikey Garcia for, the talent he is. I think a lot of people either weren't too aware of him or maybe didn't rate him so high. But, all these people, it's amazing. I listen to a lot of these boxing podcasts, and I'm so surprised always how many people pick Adrian Broner or say that he's an elite fighter. And it's it just baffles me. I never understood it. I remember the first time I saw Adrian Broner, and he was being hyped, and I saw him fighting Ponce de Leon. I don't know if anybody else remember that fight.
I did. Yeah.
I scored that to Ponce de Leon. And I've never seen a fighter that's been more overhyped, a fighter that bet up guys from lower weight divisions, whose best win, I think, who the hell is his best win? I've never seen him beaten at any kind of a top-level fighter. So, to me, it's just as simple, very easy to pick that. Broner's one of those type of fighters. Sometimes there's fighters that have that semblance. They look like they've got skill and flash, but when they're in the ring, they just can't put it together for whatever reason. I know some people some listeners to the show, like Mikey, I think always goes on about Tyrone Nurse. Broner's a higher level Tyrone Nurse, somebody who has a lots of attributes, but they just don't add up to being a high level fighter. To me, he's only ever been a kind of a top 10 fighter in any division he's ever been in. And Mikey is an elite fighter. I've been saying about Mikey that he should be a pound for pound top 5 fighter for probably over a year now. And, I think a lot of people might put him in their top 5 now, but I'd say Mikey has to go into most people's top 10 after a performance like that. He was clinical.
I agree.
Yeah. Mikey, I watched that the next day, and how it is when you wake up and you look at a few, websites and see what the result is, and you see some people giving scorecards, and some people saying, Broner only won one round of my card, and I'm thinking oh God, I hate reading these things because always these people are so full of shit. But when I watched it, I gave Broner 1 round. I gave him the 9th round. There's a case for giving him the first round. He outlanded apparently 6 shots to 5 in the first round. But if you ask me, most of them were poor paw and jabs, and the heavier work was body shots by Mikey Garcia. So I gave Broner 1 and maybe 2 rounds. And, Broner is he's very good at creating an image for himself, much like the way O'Hara Davis works his ass off on Twitter. But, beyond that with Broner, some people say he's an unfulfilled talent. I don't see it like that. I just think he's just one of the most overrated, overhyped fighters of the last 10 years. Can't think of another fighter who deserves the praise less than Broner.
Yeah, you make some fair points, Tom. I picked Garcia to win the fight, but I was certainly someone who gave Broner a greater chance than you did. And I think part of that is if you look at Adrian Broner, he has some attributes and he does certain things in there that you don't see the average fighter doing. Mikey Garcia, don't get me wrong, he is perfection. He does things better than all the fighters. But what I would say is his approach is a classic ABC approach. He does the basics very, very well. He makes it look very, very easy. He's not tremendously flashy. Do you think there's an element of that? Do you think people are seeing Garcia as a relatively straightforward fighter to look at, and Broner as, you know, a very stylish operator? And do you think that's kind of led to the fight being perceived as a lot closer than it actually turned out to be?
You know, I don't see Broner as being. I don't really see Broner as being stylish. I see Broner as ineffectual. You know, massively overrated power. Look, people talk about Broner's power. You know, he struggles to beat up guys that are much, much smaller than him. And, you know, if it wasn't for one punch, like literally that one punch against Sean Porter, people would not go on about Broner's power. Any fighter can have one lucky punch. You know, any fighter can have a lucky punch. We've seen lots of people land lucky punches down the years. You know, Broner is just an overrated fighter for me. He has certain slick elements, but, you know, like you can watch, you know, you could even go at the British level. You'll find a fighter that's like slick, but like a good straightforward fighter can take him apart. Mikey has got amazing timing. He's got like, he's got 10 out of 10 timing. He might have the best timing in all of boxing at the moment. He's got an amazing timing. He's got amazing balance, and he's, you know, extremely efficient in his movement. But the thing is with Mikey, he's not that athletic. You know what I mean? He's not.
Completely agree. He's not even back in the way he looks. You know.
No, and or the way he fights, you know, you saw him in that fight. Normally, his output, I think, is like an average 42 punches per round. In this one, I think he threw like 50% more than average. And you could see in the last few rounds, like I've never seen Mikey lose his shape a bit. In the last couple of rounds, he was kind of losing the shape because, you know, he wasn't used to that come forward aggressive stuff. You know, and you know, I think he's not a 140 fighter. I think his optimal weight class is 135. I prefer him to see him down at 135. I prefer to see him try and clean up at 135. Maybe get a Lomachenko fight. You know, that would be an two elite guys fighting. He could fight Terence Crawford. I think Terence Crawford has got more variety in his game, and I think he's more athletic. So I picked Terence Crawford to beat Mikey. But, you know, Mikey is an exceptional talent. You know, he stalked in that fight. There was elements of Golovkin in the way he cut the ring down against Broner. And the other thing with Broner is, like, can anybody explain to me what Broner's game plan was in that fight?
Yeah, I mean, it was interesting. So I heard on at least one occasion, Broner come back to the corner and say, that was my round, right? In a round that he'd clearly lost. So it suggested to me a complete lack of awareness, really, you know, from Broner. I don't know if Broner had a game plan, but that was taken away from him when he felt Mikey Garcia's power. I mean, Broner, for me, he did he looked okay in the first few rounds, but then it became a case of him being defensive and him trying not to get hurt when Garcia was cutting down the ring of him. And, you know, he did a decent enough job of doing that. But yeah, for me, the will to win wasn't really there from Broner. And I think a lot of the credit for that has to go to Garcia, actually. I think Garcia took his game away from him and really put Broner into his cell. And I really do echo your sentiments on the timing and balance. He may well have the best timing out there. He is so adept at just being in range when he needs to throw a punch and just being out of range. You know, there's no wasted movement. You know, there's no explosive circling around the ring, burning up energy. He's so efficient, like you said. He just jumps in, jumps out to the range, and it's you know, it's a real big string to his bow, I think, Tom.
Yeah, and also he's got the largest head in world boxing. You know, if Dave Price is ever looking for a head transplant, you know, Mikey Garcia's got the head for his body.
That's it. Tom, just before we move on, I'll just ask you one question. There's 3 or 4 people have put it in the chat, and I think it is a question, although I do think it's a bit harsh on you. But here we go. You think Mikey Garcia is a top 5 pound-for-pound fighter. You also think Adrian Broner is absolutely useless and one of the most overrated fighters in history. How can you give Garcia any credit for walking through a fighter who you rate that lowly?
No, like, I'm not saying Broner is useless. I just think Broner is like a top 10 type of fighter, is say in the 140 division. Nothing more. I think, let's put it this way, Crawford and Ndongo and a lot of these guys would clean him out. I think, if I had a pick, I think Josh Taylor probably beat Broner. Let's put it like that. So I just think, Mikey gets respect for a great performance. Maybe only dropping one round against a top 10 guy in a weight class above where he's ever fought before, and one who people think was good, although I don't rate. Like, what does he have to do? Apart from that performance, he probably have to knock him out. And the one thing you got to say for Broner, as a guy who doesn't particularly like Broner, is that Broner's tough as nails, and he just managed to outbox him for 12 rounds. When Bud Crawford did the same to Postol, we gave him all the credit, and Mikey's coming up from a weight class below, so we have to give him the credit too.
Yeah, no, I agree, Tom. For once, I don't disagree with much of what you're saying, but we'll come to that later on in the show, I'm sure. Tom, I'll go around the panel and then I'll come back to you on Big Baby Miller in a little bit. Jay, let's go over to you, mate. Your take on the Broner Garcia fight. Anything to add on what Irish has offered there, and any sort of further opinions on it, really, mate?
I think, Irish pretty much summed it bang on. I think Broner's the epitome of the modern day fighter when you talk about hyping himself up and putting him into positions to make the money and the big fights happen. I think when he fought Madonna, I think that was the beginning of the end. I mean, that really shook him to his bones the way Madonna manhandled him and beat him up. I think you're right with tactics. There was no tactics on Broner's side. His trainer really wasn't giving him anything apart from a verbal. So, I think he thinks he's the sort of fighter that he's that good that he can work an opponent out with over 12 rounds. He's not that good enough to do it. I think he's that has very deep mental health issues, if I can say that. But I do believe he has to believe himself a little bit more, because he doesn't really do a lot at the start. He wasn't doing much, pumping out the jab, walking away. He's just a manufactured fighter, in my opinion. He is really slick. He has got some moves, but for a man that's won so many titles, it's just insane that he's going to be a man that people say that what could have been, but he really is. He looks really slick, but I just think mentally he's not there. Mentally he can't really cope with it, and I think the interview that he did at the end of the fight pretty much sums him up. Really, that he doesn't seem that bothered. He's more bothered about how he looks in a fight and trying not to get knocked out than to win a fight now. And the problem is with that, as time goes on, his purses are going to get less and less and less, and he's going to be washed up very, very soon. As far as Garcia, it was a great performance. Garcia, as you both said, technically really good, great balance, great timing. Again, had a plan. His brother had a plan for him. He knew how to fight Broner. He kept it simple. He didn't do nothing spectacular. I think he's probably capable of even more, but I think he stuck to his plan. And he was very precise and very professional in what he did, and he knew how to get the win. And he proved it that if he stuck to what he needed to do, put the pressure on, used his timing, then he was going to get the victory.
Yeah, 100%. What about the comments on Garcia versus Terence Crawford? Mouth-watering fight. It seems that the consensus is still that Crawford deserves to be a strong favourite there.
Yeah, I give it Crawford all day, every day. All day, every day. This is, Garcia is a very, very, very good fighter. Crawford, for me, in my opinion, is elite. He's elite. He's one of my favourite fighters out there. I think he's just exceptional and a great fight. You know, because you never know. But for me, if I was betting on it now, it'd be Crawford all day on the points. Definitely.
No, I completely agree. Is there anyone who can handle Garcia at 135?
No, not that I think of. I think he's just very. I don't know. He's, as he said, he does things really well, and I think he's one fighter that took that time off. That really proved that, you know, I think it was kind of good for him in a way. I think he beats Flanagan. I think he beats Linares. I think he beats Easter. I don't really see much, you know, he can clean up in that division totally. You know, I don't think there's anyone really to touch him. I think when he's stepping, but there was talk of him that maybe stepping up to 147. I think that's just a little bit too far for him.
I've heard that. I know they mentioned that the other day. My perspective is that he would lose at 147.
Yeah.
You know, you've got, he is a guy who has fought at featherweight and super featherweight. And you're going to be coming up against the likes of a Kell Brook and a Keith Thurman. You know, these are big guys. These are guys who are 12 and a half stone outside the ring. These are, you know, not small guys. Weight classes for a reason, Jay. Do you think really he's going to struggle to get a win of that note, and that his power wouldn't have the same effect up at 147?
I think he's good enough to beat a certain amount of opponents at that weight. But to really dominate the division, I think size would be everything in this matter. But I like the way he wants to move up. Fair play to him. He wants to move up. He wants to fight the best. You know, many fighters now in his position would not even put Crawford into their mouths or into their minds, because, you know, they would just think, no, because they all know, everyone knows how good he is, you know. But he's willing to test himself against him, and he's willing to take a loss if he has to on his record. Whereas many fighters could easily, you know, step down again and just reign at that division. So I admire him for that. And, you know, he's a Mexican, so they like to take the fights, and they obviously have big belief in him, and rightly so, you know. And they see what they, you know, what he does in the gym, so they have a better idea of what he's capable of than we do from seeing him.
Absolutely. All right, cheers, Jay, mate. I'll come back to you on Miller, but thanks for that, mate. Guys, we're up to over 100 of you watching live. Only on 23 thumbs up, so do us a favour and hit that so we can get more people getting some visibility on this and hopefully joining the live shows. Paul, let's bring you in, mate. Obviously talking Garcia versus Broner still. What was your take on the fight?
Could almost have said every word Irish Tom said word for word. I tweeted before the fight, I think on the Friday, looking forward to watching Garcia school Broner. I mean, I kind of like, I'm maybe not as harsh on Broner as Tom. I think Broner has got certain skills. I think his counter punching is good. He's obviously quite quick, hands-wise, not feet. But, you know, the writing was just on the wall for me. I mean, this was a fight of opposites for me. Garcia, I know it's been said already, but so efficient in the way he moves, so economical in the way he moves, as in he's very subtle in his movements. His fundamentals are there in a very subtle way. I think that might answer some of the things that you were asking before about, you know, why do people see see things the way they do and rate Broner as highly as they do. Broner, on the other hand, a lot of very wasted movement, a lot of sort of like, you know, like dancing around the ring. And I think, you know, Mikey was just so focused. He didn't bite into any of the sort of the little bits of trickery or the little attempts to sort of like, you know, the feints and whatnot. He just stuck to his game plan and never really needed to get out of second or third gear for me. I think he has got another probably gear or two, to be fair. Really good performance. I actually thought Mikey won all the rounds. I didn't even give Broner one round. I think even in the rounds where it was a little bit more competitive. I just thought Mikey was landing the better shots. He was landing cleaner, and I thought throughout the whole fight he was the ring general. He was kind of like he was bossing it. You know, when he stalked him. I mean, like, you know, one thing that did surprise me. I was kind of like wondered, even after I sent that tweet out. I thought to myself, have I missed? The one thing I thought I might have missed was the size factor, but I mean, Mikey even seemed like the bigger man in there to me, which I got to admit did surprise me a little bit. He looked like he was very capable of kind of bullying Broner a bit, and I think Jay hit on something there with Broner's mental health. I think, you know, like, I think one reason why people kind of like buy into Broner so much is the way he sells himself. For me, that's like, what's the saying of the little boy whistling in the wind to convince himself he's not scared? It's kind of like if you sort of like, you know, can project a certain persona, you can almost convince yourself that you feel that way. And I'm not sure somebody like Broner is naturally that confident. I think he has just developed that as a way to sell himself, and fair play, but he doesn't have elite skills. He's got certain skills, but he can't put it all together. And I just thought Garcia had the beating of him, and that was pretty much what happened. Garcia pretty much did what he wanted in there. Very good performance, I thought, to be fair, you know.
Definitely. What fights would you like to see Garcia in next, Paul?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think the Crawford fight will happen. I mean, I see Crawford as maybe trying to move up after the Indongo fight. I think he's cleaned up that division. Then I think if they tried to make the Crawford fight next, I would definitely pick Crawford, because I think Crawford's bigger. I think if for some reason Crawford does decide to stay at 140 for a while, then I think that would change things a little bit for me, as Mikey sort of fills out a bit more and sort of like sort of gets used to the size a little bit more and used to the weight a little bit more. Then it might be a little bit closer. But yeah, I mean, if it was to happen now, I would pick Crawford. I kind of like did think Lomachenko, and as you guys know, I'm a massive Lomachenko fan. I think Mikey's probably a bit big for Lomachenko, in all honesty. I think he is probably a bit big for him. Where he goes next, I don't know. I think, you know, I can see him maybe somebody like Miguel Berchelt or something like that. If he was to, I don't know if he's staying at 140. Does anybody know whether he's indicated he's going to stay at 140, or was he just moving up for the 1-5?
Well, he actually said that he'd potentially go to 147, and that he's just not going to hang around. He's just going to look for the very big fights, and, you know, will flex on weight class for when they become available.
Yeah. Okay. I read that quote, and I kind of like thought he probably meant in the future. But if he said it like that, then obviously maybe he's intended to do that now. I mean, yeah. I mean, I think he'd struggle at 147. I mean, I really do. But then again, you know, he is an elite fighter. He does have an elite set of skills. This is the thing that, like, not everybody that is a huge fan of boxing can actually look at a fight and actually tell what's going on. You know, like, can actually pick that fight apart. And I think it's easy to miss some of the things that he's doing in there. I mean, if you look at somebody like Manny Pacquiao, I mean, Manny Pacquiao's a one-off, for me, one of the best fighters that's ever lived. And I don't feel even slightly embarrassed by saying that. I think he's one of the greatest fighters of all time. Started off at flyweight, and so I think where a fighter has fought is not necessarily a sort of a restrictor as far as sort of like going up to maybe even 147. I think he could possibly have success at 147 if it's done right. If he just tries to go for big fights and just tries to get the names because they're at 147, I think a lot of the people that have names there would be quite a bit too big for him. If you look at somebody like Keith Thurman, like you said, somebody like Cal Brook, if he does stay at 147, even Errol Spence, I think, you know, these are big guys, man. These are big guys. I think they would be a step too far.
I hear you. Weight classes for a reason, I guess. Yeah. Okay. Cheers, Paul. I'll come back to you for Jarrell Miller, as always, mate.
Cool.
Jet, let's bring you into the conversation, mate. Appreciate that. Letting Iris go first. Usually we let him go last, and he tears apart what you guys have already said. But he's done a fair job tonight, I must say.
Yeah, I can't disagree with anything he's actually said. So I don't really have too much to add on Broner Garcia, to be honest. I think everyone's hit the nail on the head.
What about the Crawford fight? Are you of the camp that you would favour Crawford still?
Yeah, I probably would favour Crawford. I think Mikey would give him a few problems, you know, just due to the timing and, you know, he judges range very well. I think, you know, Gamboa did it, but Gamboa is probably a bit more explosive, obviously, at a low weight class, you know. But, you know, Crawford has shown that he can be hit, but in the Postal fight, I thought he was very, very smart, and he had a very much a swagger about him. I you know, if he boxes like that against Mikey, I think Mikey will struggle a lot, especially with the, you know, the height and range differentiation. But as I said, you might be able to catch him once or twice. Probably has a puncher's chance in that fight, but definitely I'd favour Crawford, you know, quite substantially.
Yeah, I agree. Sounds like we're unanimous on that one as a panel. Yeah, let's move on to Jarrell Miller versus Jarrell Washington.
Yeah.
Is that a fight you had an interest in? What did you make of it?
Yeah, more so Jarrell Miller, to be honest. You know, I picked Jarrell Miller to win. Obviously, I wasn't around on the podcast last week, but I thought he would kind of break him down, and you know, I thought he'd probably win on points, but he's obviously, I wouldn't say he's a one-punch knockout merchant, but I think he's more a guy that will grind you down, wears you down with high activity, and his punches are kind of clubbing, if you know what I mean. So I think he done a really good job. The first round, I think he kind of sussed Jarrell Washington out. Thought Washington won the first round, you could give him that. And after that, he pretty much just steamrolled his way through Jarrell Washington. You know, he had no respect for his power. He came in very, very heavy. I think 298 or something like that.
Yeah.
And, you know, he's shown no durability concerns as well. I think you know, if he does cut down maybe 20, 30 pounds, I think he could be a real handful for anyone in the division. I think if Tyson Fury was active, I think he's the only heavyweight that could deal with him, you know, in good fashion. I think if he comes in a bit lighter, he'll cause Anthony Joshua problems. I think if he comes in lighter against Deontay Wilder, he'll cause him problems. Him versus Dillian White, I know that's kind of been talked about. That's a fight I'd like to see, even if he doesn't cut down in weight. But Miller, I think in this performance, we have just as many questions as we do answers with him. So good, decent performance, not fantastic, decent performance, good performance. Washington probably on his way out, to be honest. 35 doesn't seem to like it when, you know, the pressure's put on him heavy. You know, I wouldn't say that, but he might be in the might not be ready for the top level. He might not ever be ready for the top level. So yeah, good, decent performance from Miller. Let's see who he faces next and how he progresses. But I do think he needs to cut some weight.
Is his style too basic to be a world champion? I mean, fundamentally, he's a big guy who trudges forward. He doesn't really box. He doesn't really jab. He blocks punches with his face. I mean, don't get me wrong. He'd be a horrible guy to face, and he'd cause a lot of people a lot of problems. But fundamentally, will the lack of versatility find him out at some point yet?
Yeah, I think so. I think very much so. You know, as I said, he'd probably give someone like Anthony Joshua, Deontay Wilder, Luis Ortiz, I think he'd give them problems. but that's not to say he'd win. I think, you know, at some stage later on in the fight, he'll get tired. I think in this fight he did get tired towards the end, or at least the snap in his punches seemed to have, you know, dissipated. So I think definitely, you know, he needs to add a bit more variety. Then maybe he can, you know, cause more problems for the top guys. But I do think he does come forward a bit trudgingly, and you know, the thing is, I don't think he's concerned blocking punches with his face, only because he's come from a tough sport in kickboxing, and he's only lost to a renowned MMA sort of kicker. And yeah, I wouldn't say durability is concerned, but eventually, if you get tired in the latter stages of a fight, it is going to catch up with you. So yeah, I'd probably have to agree with you on that. To that extent. But I do think he can cause problems for some of the guys, especially in the early portion of fights, I guess.
Yeah, no, I potentially agree. Let's bring, thanks for that, Jet. Let's bring Irish Tom back in. Irish has always been a fan of Jarrell Miller. Irish, were you impressed by his performance against Gerald Washington?
Yeah, I think he's weighing 300 pounds. He comes in and he just tears these guys up. He gets on their chest, throws a shitload of punches, some good variety. He actually has some head movement for a big guy. You know, what's not to like about a big heavyweight like that? He's like a 300-pound version of Derek Chisora. You know, I think he can beat any heavyweight on the planet. Not to say he will, but he's got a good chance against any heavyweight on the planet. You know, I can see the type of fighter I think that would handle him is the type of fighter like Tyson or probably Huey. But we don't know about Huey whether he's able to move enough against a top guy like that for 12 rounds. But somebody with those type of skills will probably beat him. But like, I think he's got a very good chance in against AJ. I wouldn't be surprised if he beats AJ at all. Me, I make that AJ fight. I make him only probably like a 1-2 underdog in that fight.
I think he's got a chance against a Wilder or a AJ, because I don't think they'd know how to deal with him if he got in. But what I'd say, Tom, is his biggest wins are against Gerald Washington and who's the guy he beat last time out?
Fred Cassie.
Yeah, Fred Cassie. So both of those guys, they're good heavyweights. Both of those guys are notably non-punchers. I mean, I know Jarrell Miller's probably got a chin, but he's going to have a hell of a chin to go through his career taking punches like that. Because, you know, I don't care what your chin's made out of. If you are that easy to be hit against a guy like a Wilder or a Joshua, you're in trouble. Sorry.
Well, you know, this is boxing. You know, I'm channeling Chi, but like, you know, this is boxing. There are certain styles that don't have a long shelf life. Jarrell Miller's, you know, style doesn't have a long shelf life. You know, he needs to make his fights in the next 2, 3, 4 years, and he'll be done. He doesn't have those type of skills, but what he has is amazing physical attributes, and like it's incredible his engine for the size of him. I know he throws some arm punches, but he also throws heavy punches too. He mixes up uppercuts and stuff like that. You know, fair play to Washington. He took his licks. I was surprised they stopped that fight. I didn't think Washington was that gas. I think he could have seen out the 10 rounds. But you know, that's his style. He's a Margarito of the heavyweight. You know, and you know, look at who Margarito was able to beat. Margarito was able to beat like Sergio Martinez. I just watched that fight today, actually. You know, he beat the shit out of Sergio Martinez at 147 and stopped him in 7 rounds. You know, Margarito bet Cotto. You know, Margarito took a lot of big scalps, but Margarito, you don't have to be a good boxer, you know. But if you've got that, you know, if you got that chin and you got that size and you got that aggression, it can bring you a fucking long way.
Yeah, I agree. Derek Chisora said today that he was like I can't remember the exact phrase, but he said something like a less skillful Derek Chisora. Or I think he's potentially better than Derek Chisora. Chisora also commented that half of his punches were like slaps, which I thought was a bit rich coming from Chisora. But yeah, do you think he's potentially a bigger, better Chisora?
Definitely. I put him in there. I put him I think he's a top 5, top 6 heavyweight. That's what I think. I think he has to be a top 5, top 6 heavyweight. Name another one of these lower top 10 heavyweights that got 2 wins, like KO Cassie and KO of Washington.
Well, I think I think there's a few, Tom. I think you'd have to
go
who? Kubrat Pulev.
Who's Pulev beaten of that quality?
Tony Thompson, Ustinov, Dimitrenko, Derek Chisora.
I suppose Pulev and him. He's probably
Brian Jennings.
Brian Jennings, who was Brian Jennings? Yeah, I suppose.
Bilka.
I still have him. No, Spilka's not. I would have him in the top 10, the lower end of the top 10. Or up to 6, 7, 8 in the division. But the thing is, Pulev doesn't have the style to beat the top guys, but he does.
I actually agree. I think that's a fair comment. Yeah. Irish Tom's on form.
His styles make fights.
He's come out with some gold tonight.
And Tanya, lads, all-time great.
On fire. Yeah. Okay. No, interesting stuff. Jay, a 300-pound heavyweight. Is it possible that he can use this size advantage to his benefit for his entire career, or in a hard 12-round fight, will it come back to bite him, mate? You're on mute, Jay. By the way, Jay. Yeah. Oh. Hello, Jay.
All right, mate. Sorry, mate. A few technical issues.
No worries. Could you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay, so just talking about Jarrell Miller's size, mate, 300 pounds or give or take. Is it possible that he can continue to use that size advantage as a benefit throughout his career, or when he has to fight a hard 12-rounder, will that come back to bite him?
I personally don't rate him at all. I don't rate him at all. His size is always going to be an advantage, but at the same time, it will be a disadvantage. He does have a good engine. He's surprisingly got quite quick hands for such a big fella. He likes to get in close. He has a good, he'll go to the body, then he'll come to the head, go to the body, come to the head. So he has some sort of variation. He has constant pressure. He's got a nice guard that he tucks up well, which is good. But, we talked about heavyweight fighters and levels of heavyweight fighters, and there's a certain cusp at the top end, then you've got the next level down, then you've got the next level down. He's sort of in between the both, really. I think anyone with any sort of boxing ability that can stand off, that's got a decent jab, that can pump that jab out, and as we know, a heavyweight jab is a tough punch, and he'll be eating jabs all day with anyone who can fight off the back foot and keep a decent amount of distance between him and Miller. I don't see it. I see the comparisons to Derek Chisora, although Derek Chisora's got that Frazier, sort of weave and bob. He doesn't really have that. He hasn't fought anyone of any substance. I think probably if he fought, he should fight someone like Dillian White or someone like that, just to see where he's at, really. But I think Fury would beat him. I think Joshua beats him. Fury would beat him, depending on how he gets on with Parker. Parker would probably be an interesting fight, because Parker would probably. But he stands in front of you. So boxers love fighters that stand in front of them and don't move. They love that. Any boxer loves that. It's an easy target to hit. I just don't see him. I don't think he'd ever win a world title, personally.
Tell me which heavyweight wants Jarrell Miller standing in front of them.
Yeah, but if you're gonna fight someone, if you've got to fight someone, personally, if you've got to fight someone, you want someone who's not going to move. You want someone who's a target to hit. And if you can keep that distance with Jarrell Miller, then you're not gonna have a problem with him. It's going to be an easy night's work.
Well,
because he hasn't. Has he really got that big knockout punch? I don't think so.
Did Margarito have a big knockout punch?
I'm not, yeah, but don't compare it Margarito to Jet. It's two different fighters, two different weights. It's just you just can't compare. The guy.
Of course you can compare. We always compare fighters. We're always at it.
But a heavyweight, it's a different ball game altogether. It's a different ball game altogether. And anyway, he does bring that constant pressure, and I see he has some advantages. But as I said, any boxer will tell you, if a man stands in front of you and doesn't move his head, it's an easy opponent where someone's going to be moving his head. It's easier to hit. That's the game, isn't it?
There's not one heavyweight in world boxing now that wants Miller sitting on their chest, even if he's not moving his head.
That's what I'm saying. If you've got the ability to keep him off you with a good stiff jab, then he's not going to be sitting on your chest, because he's going to have to start moving to get inside. But he doesn't have the ability to move his head to get inside. He'll just come forward and come forward and come forward. Do you know what I mean? And anyone with...
I think you're underestimating the amount of, like, he's not a plodding static fighter. Just because he's a big lump, he actually does move his head. He's got some head movement. I think you're being harsh on him.
No, I don't.
I think he's quite basic, Tommy. He comes forward, his hands up. He keeps his hands so high. He's very easy to tag to the body.
You could hit that body all day with a fucking 4x2, and then you go nowhere. He's like Jason.
He's only fought like punches. I mean, how many times did Jarrell Washington? How many times was Washington able to curve a hook around that guard and catch him with that punch?
I think the key point here is, like, both Washington and Cassie are very light punches. Neither of them went to the body. I mean, with Washington, the writing was on the wall when they were at the press conference, and when they were face to face. And Jarrell Miller was actually, giving it all the mouth and everything. Jarrell Washington wasn't saying a word. And as soon as Jarrell Miller went off the stage, Washington was all mouthy and giving it the big one and that. It's clear Washington really didn't want any of it. And I think a boxer that can either do what Jay said and keep him at the end of a jab, or can put in a hell of a lot of body work with that size that he's got. Is that engine going to be the same? Is it, it's okay being still throwing punches in the 8th and 9th round when nothing's coming back at you, which is the case at the weekend. If you've got somebody like Huey Fury, who's a hellacious body puncher for a heavyweight, who can also move, who's got a jab, I think would just have way too many tools for somebody like Miller. He is basic. I've got to say, he's got attributes, and I quite like him, but he is very basic. I mean, I think that's undeniable.
He's very basic, and he doesn't have. I kind of was under the impression, I've seen a few of his fights, but I was under the impression that he was freakishly heavy-handed. And I'm not saying he's a light puncher by any stretch, but he isn't as heavy-handed as I suspected he was. He's very easy to catch with a jab. He's very easy to catch to the body. He'd be very open to an uppercut or a hook round a guard, I suspect. And he's just not someone who's going to have a plan B. If it's not working out for him, this is not someone who's going to get on the back foot. This is not someone who's going to duke it out with you with the jab. He's not going to have a plan B. I would like to see him in with a guy like.
But it doesn't matter.
Well, it might matter. Like if he fights a Kubrat Pulev and the first 3 rounds are literally him being battered with a jab and not able to close down the gap, then it really will matter.
It doesn't matter. Look. The thing is, when you got a fighter like that, as boxing fans, we fetishize boxers over brawler types. Margarito, when he was getting beaten in his fights, he never turned boxer when he was under pressure. He doesn't have that ability. But what he has is that that gung-ho, go forward, relentlessness to him. And that's enough when you've got such great attributes of someone like Miller to make you be able to negate the advantage of the other guy at the top level.
A top boxer will beat a top brawler every day of the week and twice on Sundays, mate. Come on.
That's not true. That's not true.
I think
you look say that yourself, Tom, on here.
But you're talking about a top brawler.
I think you're right, but remember he's only 6'4". He's not even a big guy. So you get someone of
he's not even a big guy.
No,
he's fucking enormous.
No, listen. He's big in stature, but in height in the heavyweight division, he's not big. So if you put him against someone 6'7", 6'8", 6'9" with a big reach, no, he's not. If he was explosive, if he was like a Mike Tyson that could really come underneath and explode, then yeah, I can understand it. Even like a David Hayes, a small heavyweight, when he was at his prime, he had that explosiveness that allowed him to get inside very quickly and get out very quickly. Jarrell Miller does not have that. He's a plodder. He's a plodder, and he will only get so far to a certain level. Derek Chisora is a plodder. He'll only get so far.
Yeah,
he's miles better than Derek Chisora.
I'm not saying I'm not okay. Well, forget that. He's still a plodder, and he still will only get so far against a guy that's 6'9", 18 stone with a big reach, with a good jab.
I agree.
Get it?
But look at somebody like Margarito was a plodder, and he beat Hall of Fame welterweights. And he didn't just beat one of them or two of them. He bet a lot of top level boxers, and so we shouldn't underestimate the power of these physical attributes. That's all I'm saying. I think
in the heavyweight division, because a guy like Jarrell Miller is going to be. It's going to be very, very hard for him to catch a Huey Fury or a Joseph Parker because of the size of him, and it's going to be very hard for him to fight 12 rounds in a competitive fight because of the nature of his build.
Say that you think he couldn't put the pressure on Joseph Parker?
I think if a Joseph Parker got on his bike from round one and peppered him with the jab, it would be very, very hard for Jarrell Miller to fight at a decent pace for 12 rounds because it would just be the human body has limits. And at 21, 22 stone, you know how exhausting it is to punch a heavy bag for 30 seconds. You know, to be able to fight 12 rounds against someone as athletic and fast and nimble as that, it's going to be, really, really problematic at anything like that weight.
The thing is, the body work as well.
Sorry, you go, Paul.
Yeah, sorry, mate. Yeah, I just think the body work will play a big part in as well. I've seen a couple of Miller's fights, and I haven't seen anybody go to his body. I haven't seen anybody keeping him on the end of a jab. And I do think that you may see a vast difference in the tank that he appears to have now. He does seem to have a bit of a tank now, but you're gonna have a bit of a tank when you've got a sort of like what's Cassie, like a C minus level fighter, and Gerald Washington, who, in all honesty, didn't really seem to want any of it. I mean, I think he's got some severe heart deficiencies. Jarrell Washington.
Well, I think he showed heart in that fight, Jarrell Washington. He didn't quit, unlike O'Hara Davis or somebody. He took his licks. But what I would say is, if you put Miller in against Joseph Parker in the morning, I'm picking Miller. If you put Miller in against Andy Ruiz in the morning, who had life and death with Joseph Parker, he fucking destroys him. If you put him in with AJ, I think he's got a good chance. If you put him in with Wilder, he's got a good chance. If you put him in with Pulev, I'm picking Miller.
I'm not sure, I'm not sure. I would maybe have him as a slight underdog in all of those fights, actually.
But even a slight underdog. We're up here, we're talking about how he's crap and he's this and that. Not everybody has to be a boxer, lads. I just think here's a prime example of a killer, of a guy who's got great physical attributes that can negate his boxing deficiency.
To beat him.
He would absolutely destroy Dillian White. I'll take any amount of money with anybody that he will beat the shit out of Dillian White.
Well, we'll have a little side.
I make him
if that happens.
I make him an 85% favorite against Dillian White.
Wow.
Maybe 90%.
What odds would you give on that, Tom? What odds?
Sorry?
What odds would you give on that for me? I'll take that.
Fucking odds. You can bet on the bookies. I'm not going to fucking give you odds, but I'm going to make a lot of money.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, Miller is the type of fighter you can make a lot of money on. Because people don't rate him.
If he keeps winning, yeah.
Well, it's too late then. Tell you, boys, put your money on him now while the prices are low.
I'll be putting money on him to get knocked spark out the second he faces anyone with power. But no, I'll tell you what though, very, very, very entertaining fighter. Outside the ring and inside the ring, offers something massively different stylistically. And even though I'm not completely converted to him, I will admit, if he's able to implement his game plan, all of them are going to hate to fight him. You know, Joshua, Wilder, they are not going to be comfortable if he's able to inflict himself on them. So, you know, he's a good guy.
Imagine the build-up with him and Dillian White. The fucking press conferences and that.
Fuck the press conferences. I want to see Dillian White getting sparked out. Even though Dillian White is Irish, I want to see him get sparked out.
He's Irish, is he?
His grandfather is Irish. And you know AJ's granny is Irish too. So we've got the fucking heavyweight division sewn up between the Furies, AJ, White, you name it.
All Irish, hey? Guys, 150 of you now watching live. Please hit the thumbs up button if you're one of those to help support this. Let's bring Jet back in. Jet, any commentary on any of the other fights this weekend? I think you mentioned Charlo as well, mate.
Yeah, Jamal Charlo moved up to 160 for Jorge Sebastian Hyland, who we know knocked out Matthew Macklin a couple of years ago, and he became the mandatory for the WBC belt at 160. So yeah, I think Hyland actually came into the fight injured, but Charlo did what he needed to do. I thought he was going to win anyway. He's a very, very big specimen, even at 160. At 154, he was massive. 160, he's going to be a force, I think. Probably in line for the Canelo GGG winner now. But yeah, he's a very good fighter. I think you can even put him in the top 10 already. He's he's all got all the physical attributes. I know we've been talking about all the physical stuff, but he's definitely massive at the weight. He's got decent fundamentals and he's got a lot of power. So yeah, interesting to see how he does. Victor Ortiz fought, Katie Taylor fought. Ortiz says he's coming back. I don't believe that. Katie Taylor looked very good, knocked out an opponent who hadn't previously been knocked out. And yeah, that's kind of the weekend's action.
Jet, Dillian White versus Jarrell Miller. Who are your millions on?
Oh, it's a tough one. Do you know what? I'm going to go against. I'm going to pick Miller. I'll probably pick Miller in that fight. I think Dillian White, obviously, he's been implementing a boxing sort of style in the last few fights. Dave Allen, Derek Chisora, and eventually he gets caught up in the war. And I think Miller will probably overwhelm him just with, sheer physicality. I know that they're built at around the same size, 6'4", I think. But I think Jarrell Miller's just such a bigger guy in stature, and I think he would just hulk over him. And yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if White wins, but Miller, I think, would just have a bit too much, just tower over him. And I don't really rate Dillian White's boxing skills. They're average at best, to be honest. He forces out his jab, and he seems to expand a lot of energy doing that. So yeah, probably pick Miller.
Interesting stuff. Yeah, interesting stuff. It seems the consensus is he would be a slight favourite. Okay. Cheers for that, Jet. Guys, I wanted to move the conversation on, and I wanted to talk about a topic that's been quite hot on the press in the last week, which is the boxing love triangle between Anthony Yarde, Frank Buglioni, and Hosea Burton. We've seen Eddie Hearn be quite vocal on IFL TV that Anthony Yarde shouldn't duck Hosea Burton. We then see Frank Warren throwing around some of that new BT money, saying that he'll chuck an extra 20 grand on Frank Buglioni's offer, rumoured to be £100,000 to fight Anthony Yarde. Interesting time in the light heavyweight division. Suggestions of ducking going left, right, and centre. Unfortunately, it appears that none of the fights are actually going to take place. My perspective on this, and I don't think we should necessarily overcomplicate it, is the British Boxing Board of Control have mandated Frank Buglioni versus Callum Johnson, which is happening, and they've mandated Hosea Burton versus Anthony Yarde, which isn't happening. I believe Hosea Burton versus Anthony Yarde would be a real sensible fight for Anthony Yarde to take. It's a fight that I suspect he would win, but it's a step-up fight. You know, he's saying it's a step down because Buglioni beat Hosea Burton, and he's saying it's a step down because he's rated in the WBO, Yarde's rated in the WBO. But let's be honest, Hosea Burton is a substantially better fighter than the guy who Anthony Yarde beat to get his ranking in the WBO. And Hosea Burton is potentially quite an awkward stylistic challenge. You know, he's 6'4", 6'5" as a light heavyweight. Yarde is a very, very short guy for the light heavyweight division. I think that would be just the kind of test he would need and just the kind of sensible step-up fight that he would need. So for me personally, I'm disappointed that that fight isn't happening. And I know they're saying that they're going on to bigger and better things. But if they fight someone who doesn't appear to have anything like the quality of a Hosea Burton, such as the guy Yarde beat last time out, then I, will have some sympathy with Eddie Hearn's commentary. Yeah. Paul, let's bring you in. What's your take on this bizarre boxing love triangle?
Yeah, well, I mean, I agree with you. I don't see how he goes, how his logic is working, or Team Yarde's logic is working, that because Frank Buglioni beat Hosea Burton, that makes it a step down for him because of something to do with his ranking. I mean, like, we all know that rankings can be, depending on which governing body it is, can be just one of the most arbitrary things going. You've got guys like Fraser Quendo at top spot for the WBA and stuff like that, and it's just like they don't always mean that much. Point is, he didn't beat him, and so I just think if it's mandated, he should fight him. Maybe it is the height, and he's thinking it might be awkward and whatnot. I personally think Yarde beat Burton quite easily. I don't really rate Hosea Burton that much, but I just think, like, if there's no other options open to him, certainly, as you said, if it's that or fight another nobody, well then. Yeah, I mean, that's kind of like a little bit more difficult to defend, isn't it?
Yeah, and I've already heard Team Anthony Yarde saying that they'll fight someone better than Frank Buglioni in terms of box rec rating, and that's not a good sign for me. I mean, I think the whole argument they're trying to promote is weak. They're saying, I actually made a note of this. Let me just refer to the note that I've got on my phone in front of me. So, he's not going to fight Hosea Burton because Burton isn't ranked as highly in the world and it's a step down. But he wants to fight Frank Buglioni. But Buglioni is also ranked lower in the world. So the logic seems to be failed. Also, if he fought Buglioni now, the fight wouldn't be for Buglioni's British title. Buglioni would have to leave that belt. Whereas if he fought Burton, he could then fight for that British title and he could get 2 substantial paydays. It just seems very odd logic to me.
I'm not sure why it is that they're doing it. I'm genuinely like a little bit confused as to why they're doing it, but it does seem very odd. And I just wonder, like, if it's a step down from what? What is it?
Sorry, Paul. Also, Burton was beating Buglioni anyway. And I think he's a better fighter in terms of boxing skills. So I don't know why Team Yarde don't really want to fight him. It'd be a good test, as BG said.
I completely agree, Jet. I mean, I really like Anthony Yarde. I think Yarde is a future world champion. I think he's very, very, very good. But the best guy he's beaten in his career to date is probably that guy for the Southern Area title. That's the sort of level he's been operating at. He hasn't had a fight at that sort of English to British level title. He really hasn't. And he could possibly be navigated to fight for a WBO world title by Frank. But I think that would be massively to his detriment. He needs to be built. This is a guy with minimal amateur experience and minimal pro experience, really. He needs to have those kind of fights, the Buglionis, the Burtons. And, I suspect Jet has a very good point there. Buglioni did beat Burton, but actually Burton may prove to be the more difficult fight for Anthony Yarde. Buglioni's there to be hit. He's a very aggressive fighter. He's got very poor defense. I suspect Yarde could clip Buglioni quite early on. And, Buglioni was stopped at super middleweight. I suspect Yarde could actually make easier work of Buglioni than Burton because of the stylistic challenge. I would pick Yarde to beat Burton. I'm not saying Burton beats Yarde, don't get me wrong, but Burton is a tricky guy to fight. He's a cousin of Tyson Fury, and you can kind of see that in his style. That huge frame for the weight, sticking out that jab, and I think he could be very awkward. I've met Anthony Yarde a few times. I don't think Anthony Yarde is any bigger than 5'8", 5'9". I know he's listed as 6 foot on BoxRec, but don't believe that. The size difference there would be vast. Jay, let's bring you in on this one, mate. Have you got any take on this?
Well, firstly, I love Frank. Now he's got some money behind him because he's just so blatant with this money. So throwing out thousands and thousands of pounds. Absolutely love it when he gets on a roll in an interview. I think this has a lot to do with politics and with BT Sport and with the link up with Box Nation. Yarde and Dubois are his two. He's sort of gathered a load of fighters, and these two have sort of emerged as these potential big superstar names that they could start pushing eventually for pay-per-view fights, etc., etc. And I think he's just really trying to push Yarde as quickly as he can, and up there as he can, and start pulling out these names and pulling out these figures. And you're right with Paul's right with the where he's rated in the rankings. It doesn't really mean shit, to be honest, because how is he ranked where he is after 12 fights he's had and not really fighting anyone apart from the last fight where he obviously got the ranking from. So I think this is just more Frank under a little bit of pressure to get big fights onto the channel, and he sees this as it is a big domestic fight and can really launch Yarde into a sort of different level, if you know what I mean. As far as Eddie Hearn's concerned, does he really, there's going to be a whole thing of who's promoting it, what channel is it going to be on, etc., etc. Does he really need it? No, he probably doesn't, to be honest. And I think he would advise Buglioni not to go near that fight. But I think Yarde would take it. Of course, Yarde will take anything. And I think Frank, he has such good ability that I think they can push him quickly, like they're trying to do with Dubois, trying to get him the British title fight. It's about BT Sport and Box Nation getting these big fights so they can stack these cards and really start to put the pressure on Sky that have such a big stable of fighters that are half decent names.
Totally agree. I mean, I didn't have too much sympathy with them avoiding the Burton fight and saying that they're only interested in Buglioni. I was interested in the comment he made about the Zolani-Tete fight. He seemingly made a monstrous offer for Ryan Burnett, saying that he would pay Tete's purse, and saying that he would add 20 grand in addition to Burnett's purse. So, really chucking some money about. That seemed to be ignored completely because Ryan Burnett has been announced in another fight, who I'm sure Jet will be able to fill us in on the opponent. But that was disappointing that there wasn't any traction after Frank making that offer, because that would have generated a lot of interest.
I think he's fighting Yarde, isn't he? But I mean, they're not going to let Ryan Burnett anywhere near Tete. No chance.
No, I think and I think that fight is already made. It's obviously already in the pipeline, so it's not really relevant. It does smell of desperation from Frank Warren, but I understand it because he's trying to really push the channel and push big events. And you've got someone like he has someone like Tyson Fury or Hughie Fury, are kind of marquee sort of names, that are falling through, and Tyson Fury's not coming back, and the other Fury, his fight's fallen through, so he's really trying to get names on those bills, and then there's Billy Joe Saunders, where so many fights have fallen through again, which is another one of his marquee names. So he's desperately trying to get these big fights together. And I like, it's good to have competition, but this is where the problem comes in when you have two big broadcasters fighting for top of the bill fights, because then, you know, you see a Showtime HBO scenario where they just can't work together to get these fights done. And that's the sad thing about it, really.
Totally agree. Jet, give us the lowdown on this Burnett fight. Is that one you're looking forward to?
Yeah, it should be a decent stylistic matchup. He's facing Zakionov, who became WBA super champion, beat Raushi Warren in his backyard in Ohio, I think. Good fighter. He's trained by Ricky Hatton, so he's a very come forward, aggressive pressure fighter. And yeah, I would expect, you know, Ryan Burnett to, you know what? It's a tough one because we've only seen Ryan Burnett against Haskins, and Haskins is kind of coming towards the end of his career, and he's not really a pressure fighter. The one time he did get put under pressure, I think he's improved since then, was actually against Ryan Farag. So he did struggle at times in that fight. So, you know, it'd be interesting to see how he does. I'm actually picking Burnett to win that fight, but, you know, Zakionov could make it very, very tough for him all night. It's in Belfast, so he'll have a massive crowd cheering him on. And in regards to the offer, from what I know, from what I heard at least, is the Zakionov and Burnett fight was actually made a few weeks ago. Obviously, they said it in the interview, and Frank said we made an offer before that. I think he's clutching at straws there. I think he's trying to save face because, you know, Tete's been inactive as of, you know, the last few months. I know he faced one of the WBO ranked guys, and he got the world title kind of handed to him because the champion failed weight. But yeah, I think he's clutching at straws there, Frank. You know, we know both of them are shady as each other with the pen and going at each other. So the interviews were entertaining to be fair, but you know, you've got to take everything they say with a pinch of salt.
Definitely. Let's bring in Irish Tom. I'm sure he's going to have a different opinion. But Tom, what was your take on this Anthony Yarde saga?
I'll tell you what, Anthony Yarde is a ducking piece of shit. He should be fighting Burton. And you know what else? Buglioni is a ducking piece of shit. He should be fighting Yarde.
Could you expand a little bit on that?
But Irish, I mean, if the board mandate it, what are they really supposed to do? Unless, you know, I mean, because then he would have to vacate.
Sorry, Jed.
So you'd have to vacate. So I don't know.
Yeah, I know, but like, who fucking cares? It's two promoters fucking pissing up against the wall. Who gives a shit? They're both good fights to me. Don't care which one they make. Looks like neither of them be made. Something else will be made. You know, who gives a shit?
Fingers crossed it's not Buglioni versus Cleverly or something.
Frank Buglioni has got no fucking interest in defending that title 3 times. You know, he probably wants to go on to world title level. Yeah, and also he's got no fucking interest in fighting Yarde because Yarde will probably spank him. And who knows how the British Board of Corruption Control makes up these mandatories? Who knows what type of money is changing hands from different promoters? You know, maybe Eddie wants to block Anthony Yarde from doing it, and he put this one in the way, and maybe he didn't, and then Frank says he didn't. Who gives a fucking shite? It doesn't matter about Buglioni or Burton. We just want to see these decent fights being made. And, you know, if these ones aren't made, there's loads of other boxers out there that Yarde and Buglioni can fight. And it's two promoters pissing up against the wall.
Yeah, but if we have to sit through Yarde Biryani too, then I'll care. That's when I like Anthony Yarde, and I really, really hope he gets the necessary build-up. So that by the time he fights for a world title, he's he's ready to go. But at the minute, he has fought almost nothing, you know, and it is getting.
He's doing it the right way. He's like, if you think about it the right way, he's been slowly coming up, and he took the Southern Area title, and now he's going to go from a British title, which is a jump probably over the English and the Commonwealth title. But he's kind of doing it the right way. And
Tommy, he's not going for the British, is he? Because now what's going to happen is he's not going to take the fight with Hosea Burton, and he's going to fight someone else within the WBO ranking.
Who cares? Who cares? They'll probably be as good as Burton.
Well, you say this, he just fought a fight to get WBO ranked #8, and the guy was, terrible.
Yeah, but I told you was absolutely rubbish, just like one of these desperate WBO ones. But there's also good fighters in the WBO top 15. He doesn't even have to fight a fella that's ranked. He can fight anybody in the fucking world. Frank, the BT have got loads of money to throw at it. This is just to create a bit of spite and interest between the two promoters. And maybe if they get a fight together, it'll add a bit of extra spice to it. But how many light heavyweights are there out there? There's probably about 1,500 of them. There's loads of them there that aren't named Burton or Buglioni. And it's not like any of us were really saying before this all went down, I really want to see the Burton fight, the Buglioni. Who gives a shit? Two promoters pissing against the wall.
I'll tell you what, there's one of them named Nathan Cleverly.
The only thing
I'd fucking like to see the Nathan Cleverly fight.
Yeah.
Irish talking about the WBO rankings. The only thing I fear is he might do a Tommy Langford and get really, really high in the WBO rankings and get mandated to fight for an interim belt or something like that. And he'll face a really, really, really stern challenge if he avoids the sort of British scene or the European scene, if anything. That's the only thing with Yarde, I think. Much.
Well, I know what you're saying, but I think that Yarde is a blue chip prospect.
I think he's very good. Don't get me wrong. It's just I fear that
Tommy Langford was just one of these.
Yeah, Tommy Langford is not very good, but
it's somebody you can throw to the wolves.
I fear he may be in that same situation, if you know what I mean, and then obviously might come up against a really, really, really strong opponent and lose or something like that. That's the only bad.
Yeah,
he might be in a bad sticky.
But I think with Tommy Langford, it's just one of those ones where he's not going to win at the top level, so you just throw him in somewhere. Don't really care. You're not going to develop him over 10 years like Yarde. Tommy Langford reached a ceiling, so I think Frank will be a lot more careful with one of his blue chip prospects than with Tommy.
Fingers crossed.
I saw that Daniel Dubois is also fighting for the Southern Area title. He takes on AJ Carter. Is that a fight anyone's going to have an eye on? Do you think Carter could potentially represent a step up, guys?
Is Carter supposed to got power?
Yeah. He's been stopped a few times, I believe, but at a relatively low level, he's supposed to be a bit of a banger.
It wouldn't be hard to be a step up from the guys Dubois has been fighting, though, would it? To be honest, I know he's only early in, but
wasn't he supposed to defend that WBC Youth World Heavyweight title or something like that?
I don't know how serious that is. He won the WBC Youth title, and I think he won it against a guy in his 50s. I don't know how serious you can take that title. The WBC Youth title was supposed to be on the line. Well, they hadn't factored in what happened if the other guy had won, obviously. But, there you go. But yeah, I guess Frank's doing the right thing with him there. I guess we're talking about Anthony Yarde being thrown to the wolves, but you've got to be even more careful in the heavyweight division where, one punch could change everything, I guess.
He did say he might want to train with Klitschko for the AJ rematch, if anyone heard that.
It's interesting. I also noticed Frank signed Nathan Gorman, which I think is an excellent bit of business. Really, really rate Gorman. I think he's got the potential to go quite far in this sport.
So,
he's another guy who's very deceptively young as well. He looks a lot older than he actually is, but I wouldn't be surprised if Nathan Gorman troubles the world top 10, top 20 rankings one day. I really think he's that good. But there you go. Guys, let's talk next week's boxing. I had a look at next week's boxing. I saw Lomachenko was billed to fight. That fight's still going ahead?
Yeah, he's facing Miguel Mariaga, who's coming off a loss from Oscar Valdez. So I don't know why he's fighting at 130. He's very small for me, but that's still going ahead.
Give us the lowdown on that one. Is that expected to be a fairly routine performance from Lomachenko?
Yeah, I mean, if you go on, you kind of have to look at Mariaga's last few performances. Obviously, he's got a stoppage over a journeyman or something, but he lost to Nicholas Walters at featherweight, and he lost to Oscar Valdez, which was a bit of a shootout. And if he's losing to those sort of guys, Lomachenko, obviously he's done a really good number on Nicholas Walters. Valdez is still improving, and he's still a learning fighter. Lomachenko is elite at this stage in his career, with for over like 400 amateur fights and a couple of world title wins and whatnot. So, people would expect Lomachenko to do well. Mariaga seems to be a bit of a banger, seems to be a bit of a puncher. So if he has anything in this fight, it's just a puncher's chance. But I'd expect Lomachenko to stop him in the later rounds, to be honest. I don't think Mariaga's up to much. He's coming off a loss as well. Don't know how he's got in the rankings and got a world title shot at this weight, but he has. And yeah, hopefully Lomachenko actually faces someone, of note. It seems his maybe last one or two opponents have, gone down a little bit instead of going up. And let's hope he, maybe moves up or faces Miguel Pichel or Uchiyama or someone like that at the weight class, and hopefully gets a big win. And yeah.
Good stuff. Is there any other anything else other of note this weekend, Jack?
Let me have a look. And I mean, you can go to someone else and come back to me, and then if I have anything, I'll post it.
Appreciate that, Jet. Paul, you're a big Lomachenko fan. Will you be keeping your eyes on this one?
Oh yeah, I mean, I'll watch it for sure. I don't think it's a great fight. I don't think, as Jet said, I think he went the distance with Walters, if I remember rightly. But I think he was quite soundly beaten. It does seem like a bit of a step down. I think they are probably having a bit of difficulty matching Lomachenko at the minute, which is kind of understandable. He's kind of like really is taking the piss out of some quite decent fighters, literally taking the piss out of them. And so I think, when I heard about it, it was kind of a little bit disappointing. I was hoping for something. But I was hoping for Bachel's. Bachel's probably the only other sort of like challenge for Lomachenko in that division right now. And then, like Jet says, it's kind of about moving up. I kind of like don't understand the way they sort of like work these mandatories out. I mean, I know it's kind of like going off this subject a little bit, if you forgive me, but the Charlo fight of the weekend. Like, he's fighting a guy with hobbling along on this fucking semi-busted ankle at his first time ever fighting at 160, and that put him in the mandatory spot for Triple G's WBC bout. How the fuck does that work? I mean, can anybody explain that to me?
I think it's only because Highland was rated number one and he was actually the mandatory. So maybe that makes sense. But there's other fights that make no sense. I think Oscar Valdez's last opponent, not Mariaga, the one before, he was a mandatory. And
is that Rueda?
Yeah, is a Japanese kid or something like that, or Chinese guy.
Right, yeah, the one after that.
Yeah, he was a mandatory. So I mean, some of them are funny, but obviously Charlo's fought the number one in the rankings. So that's probably why he's been slotted in at number one. So maybe, I'm not sure.
I mean, that fight shouldn't have gone ahead, I don't think. Highland was injured when he came in, and
he had tape on his knee or something like that, and they told him to take it off. So
they told him to get back out the ring and take it off. I mean, why are they letting him fight in that? I mean, you could see it. He was worse, hobbling worse than David Hay in that.
Agree. Oh, Sota Carras versus Mauricio Herrera is on Friday, if anyone wants to watch that.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, Paul, it's a fair point. We could do a whole show on it, but the main stavern is Deontay Wilder's mandatory. You just wonder how on earth do some of these things get calculated.
Yeah.
Can we do a whole show on it?
Slight exaggeration, perhaps, but you get the point. Tom, what about you? What about this weekend's fights? Not too much to get excited about. If it's going to be quite routine for Lomachenko.
Yeah, that's. I think that's the only fight that's up on odds checker for the weekend. So quite not. There's nearly no boxing now in August at all. It's rubbish.
Yeah.
Crawford in Dongo next week. No?
Yeah, that's it. And then there's a break for 2 weeks after that, I think. There's nothing on odds checker.
Yeah, it's quite a period, definitely. But I guess that's the nature of the season sometimes, which is it always means it's slightly quieter time this time of year. Jay, I don't feel like I've come to you for a while. Sorry if I've been missing you out, mate. Have you got any thoughts on the Lomachenko fight?
Win. Definitely watch it. Love watching him. Best boxer in the world. And you're forgetting Zili Big Bang Zhang, the Chinese heavyweight sensation. Will be fighting at the weekend.
Oh, okay.
Does that excite you?
Nature? Anyone have a vote?
No, he's fighting Nick Guevas, whose last opponent he lost to was BJ Flores. So that says it all, really. But and Beltran, is Beltran fighting? Ryan Beltran?
Yeah, Brian Vasquez.
Yeah, he's fighting Brian Vasquez. Yeah. So yeah, I will watch Lomachenko on Box Nation because I just like watching him. It's just he's a joy to watch. So yeah, that's the highlight really. And Zili Big Bang Zhang, who's a future heavyweight champion of the world, 16-0.
Good stuff. He's a big beast, isn't he? Is that the guy who's like 7 foot tall? Or have I got the wrong one?
No, you got that's the other one. I can't remember.
It's Tyson Dong, isn't it?
That's the one. Yeah, but he hasn't fought for a while. And well, you know, I'd like to see him up there, but I don't think it's ever going to happen. I don't think
he's probably for the best. He's actually got less technique than Jarrell Miller.
It'd be a good fight to see. I'd like to see Big Bang against Miller. I think that's a good one because Big Bang has got quite a few knockouts on his record, so he could spark Miller for Irish Tom's entertainment.
Oh, there we go. Guys, we've come to the end. We've done about hour and a half. But yeah, as Tom mentioned, not the busiest period in terms of fights in the diary and on the calendar and that sort of thing. So perhaps not a surprise we're finished a bit earlier. Let me just go around the panel and see if anyone's got anything else they'd like to throw in. Jet, over to you, mate.
Did anyone kind of see the news? Luke Campbell versus Jorge Linares. Any thoughts on that? Quick.
Oh yeah, good point. Yeah, I noticed that. I think I like Luke Campbell. I find it hard to see him having success against Linares. I just think Campbell's one of these guys who looks very, very good against lower level opponents, but when he steps up to high levels, it kind of falls apart and it kind of unravels quite quickly. And I think Linares is very, 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 very good. I suspect Linares stops Luke Campbell, actually.
Fair point.
Yeah.
Anyone else in that fight?
Not really. I agree. I don't really rate Luke Campbell at that level. I think he's just quite obviously like he's not a world level fighter at this point. I don't think. And Linares is. I mean, I think one could argue that Linares is sort of pound for pound skill wise. You know, he's clearly got so much skill there. I think it's probably a stoppage for Linares for me.
100%. Okay, Paul. Anything else to throw into the mix for you, mate? Before we call it a night.
I know. I might be the only one that's it.
No. I know what you're going to say.
Jay's indicated that I might be alone in my interest in this, but have people been following the Mayweather McGregor debacle, spectacle, whatever you want to call it, the build-up?
Oddly enough, I have a group chat with some friends and family, and they discuss this. I mute the group. Let's put it that way.
Mute anybody who brings it up. Buttons.
Well, yeah. I must admit, I haven't really been following it, to be honest. It's kind of lost me completely at this point.
I've got to be honest, I've been following it a little bit. I haven't watched all of it, but I've watched, I think it was the first one. I don't know if it was it was somewhere in America, it might have been in New York. But it's entertaining. Like, McGregor is entertaining. Some of the stuff he comes out with is actually really quite funny. I'm gonna go out on a limb here and say everybody that is saying that he's got no chance whatsoever, like as in no chance, not any chance whatsoever. I think
Don't say it, Paul. Don't say it. Don't say it, because
the mute button. Where is this mute button?
I mean, Floyd, to be fair, Floyd could have a heart attack in the ring, I guess.
I just think somebody like McGregor who will be, if you think of an MMA fighter, the way they throw punches, it's very different from the way a boxer throws punches. And I just think somebody that is that much younger, quite a bit bigger, with quite a lot of reach, that's a southpaw. I think to say they've got no chance whatsoever is a bit naive.
But look at
what percentage chance? What percentage chance are you giving him about boxing Mayweather, Ned?
Question. Tom is on form tonight.
Who said anything about outboxing him? Obviously.
Yes, because anybody can win by an injury or by fucking, a parachutist landing on his head.
No, I'm talking about him knocking him out.
Yeah, okay, that's it. No, knocking him out or outboxing him.
Don't underestimate a brawler.
Here's what I'll say though. Floyd Mayweather fought Canelo Alvarez. Canelo Alvarez was the weight class above. He was a big guy. He was a young guy. He was a big power puncher. And he'd also had 40-odd professional boxing ring at fights and, has proven himself to be a very, very capable boxer. And let's not forget what Floyd did to him. I mean, I know CJ Ross had her opinions on that fight, but realistically, Floyd whitewashed Canelo Alvarez. He took him to school. He embarrassed him, humiliated him. He took everything away from him. And Canelo is one of the top fighters in the world. Conor McGregor is a guy who's never had a fight in boxing.
Floyd would have to sink a lot. Floyd would have to have aged more than he'd have to be like Muhammad Ali against, against I always forget his fucking name. What do you call the father? Sorry,
Larry Holmes.
No, the one that. Sorry, I didn't hear what Larry Holmes. Yeah, that's what you said, Gossip.
Oh, yeah.
But he had Parkinson's disease then. So that's the level of failure we're going to be looking at.
Yeah,
I think Ricky Parkinson's beat McGregor.
I mean, I think the point kind of like might lie a little bit within that about age and that. Like, obviously, when he did that to Canelo, he was what's that, 5 years ago?
Yeah. Well, what percentage chance are you giving him of knocking out Floyd?
It's not a lot. It's not a lot. I don't.
Yeah, come on now. Give the number.
I don't really know.
You're the one who brought it up. Give us a fucking number.
No, I mean, if I had to pick a number, I'd be picking out my arse, and it'd be like 5 or 10%. There's not a
10%. Ah, for fuck's sake.
That's a lot.
But Gossip,
10 is a lot.
15% chance of winning when you put 3 or 4% on top with breaking his leg or something happening or bad cuts.
Look, let me be really clear. I'm not saying he's going to beat him. What I'm saying is the people that say he has zero chance, they don't even give him a 1% chance, I think are very naive about certain factors and certain. This is boxing. Anything can happen in boxing.
The way I look at it, right, is as follows. Okay, if I fought Floyd Mayweather, I'm a younger man than Floyd. I'm a bigger man than Floyd. If I caught him on the chin and somehow something happened, it could hypothetically knock him out. Now, Conor McGregor is obviously a better fighter than I am. But my point is, when you're at Floyd Mayweather's level and when you have established dominance over fighters like Manny Pacquiao, Zab Judah, Miguel Cotto, when you are so dominant over that level, the difference between a Conor McGregor and just the average man on the street is comparable. If Usain Bolt was running against a 12-second 100-meter runner, he may as well be running against a 20-second 100-meter runner. The gap in class is just so vast.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, there's not much chance. I'm just saying that.
I don't actually think he's even got a puncher's chance, to be honest, mate.
You don't?
No. I mean, I've seen all these fighters who are, pro boxers land on Mayweather, and you've seen Mayweather take punches, roll with punches. You've seen Mayweather hold on in fights when he's been hurt. You've seen that the cream of boxers, often bigger guys than Mayweather, hit him, and Mayweather's taken it and worked through it. I don't actually think he even has a puncher's chance.
You don't think the fact that he's a couple of years older now than even the Pacquiao fight, and I don't think he dominated Pacquiao by any means. That was a competitive fight. And the fact that he's kind of like, what is he now, 40, and McGregor's like 28 or whatever.
McGregor's useless.
You're talking about one of the best fighters of all time. It's not just like an average welterweight fighter. You're talking about one of the greatest, will go down as one of the greatest defensive boxers of all time. This is the point. He's not just fighting, an average middle welterweight. He's fighting one of the best boxers of all time. That's what you've got to remember.
Sure.
The key word there is defensive boxer. It's not like he's an attacking boxer who's got old like Mike Tyson, who any old fat Irish shite could beat. He's a defensive fighter.
Exactly right. Exactly. If he fought a 40-year-old Chris Eubank Jr., he might get the job done, because Eubank's speed and reflexes and athleticism would have dipped. But Floyd doesn't rely on that. Floyd doesn't rely on insane power. He's thinking about angles. He's thinking about
reflexes, Tom. You've just said it there. Reflexes. Surely reflexes are one of the
But in that, I think
prime elements of Floyd's game.
Yeah, but I think there's certain things about Floyd Mayweather, because he's that good. It's not about speed or athleticism.
He reads
natural ability. It's like a footballer. You get a really old footballer who's over the hill, but he can still ping a pass 30, 40 yards without even thinking about it. And he could be like 2 stone overweight and might not have the fitness, but it's just his technical ability. He's that good. He doesn't need to rely on athleticism, because he's been doing it for so long now that slipping a punch, shoulder roll, he's just so good at it. It's just
he's not Roy Jones Jr., who really, his style totally depended on his speed, and his reflexes. He's not that. Floyd has got every technical skill that Roy Jones never had. And if anybody has the ability to turn himself into Bernard Hopkins, it's fucking Floyd Mayweather. Let's be honest.
Let me ask you a question, mate. If Floyd fought Sam Eggington, what percentage chance would you give the egg?
Who are you asking that to?
You.
Seriously, Paul is just doing quality, deep level, super high thinking trolling here. We're all falling for it. Either that, or Paul's turning into a casual, and this podcast should be shut down.
Wait, I spoke to one of my MMA friends, and he follows it like religiously, and so he was like, "Are you looking forward to McGregor Mayweather?" I said, "Well, look, the event is going to be fantastic, but the fight won't be." And he's like, "Come on, McGregor's got to have a chance." And I was like, "If Manny Pacquiao can't land on Floyd Mayweather clean, then what makes you think that McGregor's going to land on him clean?" McGregor's a counterpuncher. Don't forget, he's not an aggressive, come forward brawler. He's a counterpuncher. So you're talking about counterpunching, the best counterpuncher of this generation. I think he finally got it.
Spot on.
You know what I mean? It doesn't make any sense.
You nailed it.
Yeah,
and the other thing is,
it to him, and he goes, "You're right. You are right, because McGregor's not going to come forward, so he's going to be very cagey in the first 2 rounds."
Lads. Sorry, Jet. Sorry, I know I'm cutting into you. Just when you're talking about your MMA friend, it's like MMA people are hyped for this fight because they're fucking foolish enough. They think that there's a reason that he could chance that he could win, and boxing fans are all going, "This is shite. I'm not paying for it and streaming." So, like, one half of this fight is not getting sold. I think people can see that, and then the other thing I'd say as well is like, back to you, Jet.
No, as in, I think I made him realize after a while that McGregor's not really got a real chance in this fight, and that was kind of the be all and end all. And he was just like, "Okay, you made me understand now that McGregor's kind of got no chance in very.
But he hasn't got much of a chance. What I'm saying is he has.
It's okay, Paul. We believe that
he hasn't got zero chance.
He's got zero chance. Zero.
Paul, does he have a bigger chance than a man? You know, like, does he have a bigger chance than any one of us? Is he does he have a bigger chance than a Southern Area champion? You know, is it just negligible? Is what I'm getting at.
Of course he's got a bigger chance than any one of us. He's a combat fighter. He's a professional fighter. Of course, he might not be a professional boxer, but I mean, like,
why do people think that Conor McGregor has power? This is what I don't understand.
Yeah, I totally agree. I don't think he's got power at all.
McGregor.
Yeah, if you look at the knockouts he scored in these MMA fighters, they're against guys who are wide open with their chin just hanging out with no boxing defense.
I agree. Nate Diaz is a big guy. He's a lot bigger than Floyd Mayweather, and he's more of a boxer than anything else. He's got other parts of his game. And
look at the gloves.
Conor McGregor was dropping him fucking left, right, and centre. I think he dropped him 3 times in one round.
Have you seen how bad Nate Diaz?
Also, as well.
Seriously, have you seen how bad Nate Diaz is at boxing? Nate Diaz wouldn't be a top 300 fighter.
I don't think Nate Diaz would last a single round with like a Kell Brook or a Keith Thurman.
No.
He'd be knocked out immediately. He's basically like the talent pool in MMA. Like, MMA may be popular to watch, but nobody does it. It's like women's boxing. You've got the top guy, and then you got everybody else is, you know, fairly rubbish because nobody does it. It's, you know, there's not like MMA in the Olympics. There's not MMA clubs all over the country in nearly every major city and town. You know, they don't exist.
I think there is now. I mean, I agree that somebody like Nate Diaz wouldn't have a chance against a top boxer or whatnot. Of course, the point I was trying to make was that you're saying he's got no power, and I'm just saying, like, if he's got the power to keep dropping a big guy like that, then he clearly has got power. He's clear.
But that just means if you're in against, like, say if you put in like Terence Crawford in against Nate Diaz, he'd be dropping him multiple times in the rounds too. And we don't think that Crawford is a mega hitter. Look, Conor McGregor is a lot bigger as well than Terence Crawford. Like, you know, there's just levels in this stuff. It's a sport that there's not many participants in. And
10-ounce gloves. It's 10-ounce gloves they're using.
How much?
10-ounce.
How much? Yeah, what are MMA gloves? How much bigger are those MMA?
4 ounce.
Exactly.
MMA.
They're 4-ounce gloves. You know,
I heard it was less than.
You know, like,
but don't quote me on it.
It's 10-ounce gloves.
You've seen guys sparring him, like, see a man Van Heerden, and you ask him what's his power like, and you just see him, and he's just like, you know, Van Heerden probably hits as hard as McGregor, and he probably boxes better than him.
Yeah, but Van Heerden's,
you know, if Van Heerden was fighting Floyd in the morning, what percentage chance would we give him?
No, but I'm saying Chris Van Heerden, it's a very, very durable fighter. I mean, he fought Errol Spence, and Errol Spence was beating the shit out of him, and he never went anywhere. He never went down. I think he got stopped in the end. He's a durable guy, that Van Heerden. So, I mean,
but he knows the difference between being hit by Errol Spence and being hit by fucking Conor McGregor. Like, he'd probably say fucking Errol Spence hits. And he just looks when he's saying McGregor. Like, this idea that McGregor is a massive power puncher, you know, is based on people with very, very poor boxing ability in MMA, you know, compared to boxers. And they're wide open. And McGregor was also boiling down to that weight, and he was massive for his weight.
I don't think he's a massive power puncher. What I do think is he has clearly got some power, and what he has definitely got is good timing and good accuracy. And those are the things, if you talk to anybody, even Mike Tyson used to say, it's really not about the amount of power, but it's the speed at which you deliver the punch and the accuracy that you deliver it with.
I've watched videos. I see him swinging and missing wildly. But I see him missing by,
have you seen his uppercut? Have you seen his uppercut, Paul? Have you seen his uppercut that he uses and his bag work? Like, it's pathetic.
And you talk about accuracy. You're fighting Floyd Mayweather. Accuracy is key, and if you can land a punch on Floyd Mayweather, you're doing very, very well. And I don't think he will.
Paul, let me give an exaggerated example, and I'm saying this to prove a point. Let's say the 5 of us were down the Red Lion now, having a Bacardi and Coke.
I'm banned.
Across the other side of the bar, two old 50-year-old men off their heads decided to go outside and have it out and throw bombs on each other, yeah? One of them gets hit. The likelihood is they're getting dropped. You know, that's just what happens. And yeah, Conor McGregor probably has power in that context, but power is only good if you're able to land the punch.
You keep like comparing it to like two drunk guys at a pub or
but that is what it's like compared to a Floyd Mayweather. That is what it's like.
Because the guy that's trained in combat sports for years and years and years, I think there's a fucking vast difference, mate. Come on.
Here, I think
we accept.
You know, it's
picking McGregor to win.
Yes,
it's bad enough that Paul. It's bad enough that Paul is actually giving him a decent chance. Without, it's bad enough. But what's worse is gossip saying we're all drinking Bacardi and Coke. Get the fuck out of here.
That's the analogy of 2017. That is perfect.
I think we should just leave it there. All I'm saying is it's not.
Paul, I can't believe I can't believe Paul is not trolling. This is like. I can't believe, Paul. Are you on the take? Has Sky been fucking paying you money? Is this what's going on? They've already got fucking gossip and Jay on the take, and now it's you too. Only me and Jeff sitting over here.
You know what I'm like? Any excuse to give Eddie Hearn and Sky my money, and I'll jump at the opportunity to do that. You guys know what I'm like, but I think I'm going to sit this one out and sleep through it. To be honest.
Fuck right. Yeah, absolutely.
I'll stream it.
Has the undercard even been announced yet?
Gervonta Davis is on the undercard.
Gervonta Davis against Rocky Martinez.
Rocky Martinez, yeah.
I'll happily buy the pay-per-view if clearly Badu Jack's on it. But if it's not, I think I'm just going to sleep through it. Like, I don't think I want to wait up for it.
Oh, did anyone hear also Fury versus Parker on ITV pay-per-view, apparently? There's a
fuck that, yeah.
I heard Badu Jack and Stevenson. Did anybody else hear that?
I haven't heard that one.
Yeah, that's what I heard.
No, I reckon they might just put nothing on it.
No, they put
why waste $1 million?
But yeah.
We've got a comment from Mark in the chat. He's gone, "Hi, it's Paul here. I'm using my mate's account. Don't worry, I'm trolling, really."
Don't worry, Paul. We accept you pick McGregor for this fight. Don't worry. Okay. It's okay.
Have YouTube developed some kind of like voice emulator, and there's some other fucking who's Conor McGregor on this call?
It's one of Jet.
Who the fuck is that guy?
Yeah.
Right.
Who the fuck is that?
I came to Paul about 25 minutes ago and said, "Paul, have you got anything to throw into the match before we wrap up?"
Yeah.
So
he dragged us into it.
Jay, let's go to yourself, mate. Have you got anything else before we call it a night?
Well, Conor McGregor, I think that no, I won't say any more about it. It's all done. All done. But remember the date when Paul said Conor McGregor was going to beat Floyd Mayweather?
Come on now. Come on.
2nd of August. That's when it happened. On a boxing podcast.
People who don't think that Floyd Mayweather is definitely going to win. Oh, so I've messed that quote up. I'll just stop digging. Iris.
I just can't believe we've actually had this conversation. I really like this is. I thought I was going to be the one to start doing this trolling, and like I've been usurped. Fuck you, Paul.
It's high level trolling from Paul. Mikey has put, if Irish Tom isn't picking the Irishman, it actually says it all.
Look,
What's that? That's a bullshit statement. That one.
I had to go extreme to pull off a successful troll. There was nothing sort of like minor was going to work, so you know.
Here, somebody in the chat said we should do a question and answer for the last few minutes. Send me on for that.
No.
Yeah, go on.
To be honest,
got time. I don't mind answering questions.
If Paul's allowed to bring up Conor McGregor, we should get some chat action here from some of the degenerates that are in the chat.
He's not bringing up Conor McGregor. He's picking Conor McGregor to win. Just
what am I going to say, lads? The heavyweight champion of the world, AJ, Irish. right? We're going to have Conor McGregor is going to be pound for pound boxing. He's going to number one when he beats Floyd Mayweather. You know, we're taking over, lads. Taking over.
Some of the questions have started to roll in. Team Groves, my question: what choice of alcohol has Paul been on today? The second question from Stuart: Paul, are you on drugs?
Paul's gonna get it. Paul, you're going to get it this week.
Oh, it's okay, man. The comment section's going to go wild.
Stay off Twitter.
This is your Glowacki moment, Paul.
Yeah, it's all good. It's all good.
It is.
When Connor schools him over 12 rounds, you'll all eat your words.
This
That's
isn't
true.
like Sam Eggington, yeah, versus Gavin or something. This is high level stuff, high level trolling.
This is one of this is one of those fights. It's kind of like it's like an exponential version of Brooke versus GGG, where like if Brooke had won, I would have just lost the plot. Nobody would have seen me for a long time. But imagine the extent all those boxing hardcores would get screwed over if the Irish go ahead and do it and become the best pound-for-pound boxer of all time.
Not going to happen.
It would be. Like, don't get me wrong. I would love it if Conor McGregor beat Floyd. But
the pure trollery would be absolutely unbelievable. But it'd be the death of boxing. Literally, boxing would
be the death of
explode.
boxing, wouldn't it?
Carl Froch actually said something insightful, and he goes, Floyd Mayweather is actually trying to hold boxing's reputation. The first thing he's actually said right in his punditry career.
What's he trying to do?
He's putting boxing's reputation on the line against Conor McGregor.
Well, he is, yeah.
I'll tell you what, the MMA fans would be unbearable if Conor McGregor comes out, looks good for a few rounds, and sparks out Floyd. Like,
they would go bloody wild.
Floyd's just probably trying to sort of like, well, I'm gonna die as a boxer. Then boxing can die with me. Like, if I can't have it, no one else can. Like, so I just fucking kill it on my way out. Like,
I'm just hoping that if Floyd does beat McGregor, that he'll finally step up to the plate and take on Tyrone Nurse
or O'Hara Davis.
yeah, I'll tell you what. The best chance of Conor McGregor winning is as follows. Apparently, Floyd's already gone broke. Now, if Floyd schools Conor McGregor, that probably is the end of both of their boxing careers. Whereas if Floyd were to get knocked out by Conor McGregor, the rematch would be crazy big money, or mega bucks. So I think the conspiracy theorists out there, that's the biggest chance of this fight even being remotely competitive is that they realise the value in a rematch.
Floyd for a dive? No chance. His fucking ego wouldn't let him do it, man. To not go to 50-0? I think
there's $1 billion in Floyd losing the fight. But
well, here, Paul, that's the first sensible thing in about 26 shows.
Fuck you, yeah.
Yeah. There we go, guys. I think on that note, we will probably call it a night. But yeah, good to speak to you all, and thanks for everyone who's joined in the chat. Thanks to everyone who's been commenting throughout. Let's wrap it up there, guys. If you've enjoyed the show tonight, please hit the thumbs up button. Please subscribe to my channel. Check out Jet's channel as well, which is the Boxing Discussions channel. If you're watching this at a later date, leave your comments in the section below. And have a good evening, everyone. Thanks for tuning in.
Happy Wednesday.
Au revoir.
Ta-da.
Cheers all.